Captain Han stood at the window of his ship, looking at the massive structure floating in space. The Galactic Assembly Building was bigger than any city on Earth. It gleamed like a jewel, made from materials he couldn't name, built by species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before humans even invented writing. He had been to this place many times before. Each visit felt the same. The aliens would smile with whatever they used for mouths. They would speak in polite words. Then they would deny everything humanity asked for. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Engineer Yuna sat at her console, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. She had been monitoring assembly communications for weeks now, searching for anything useful. Lieutenant Tay checked the weapon systems, though they both knew those weapons would never be fired. "Not here, not yet, Captain," Yuna said softly. "You need to see this." Han walked over to her station. On her screen were dozens of files, all marked with high-level security codes. He raised an eyebrow. "How did you get these?" "You don't want to know," Yuna replied. "But you need to read them." "All of them." Han began reading. The first file was about trade regulations. Humans were banned from exporting 43 different types of technology. The reasons given were always about safety or compatibility. But the real reason, written in an internal memo, was simple. Human innovation must be contained. The second file was worse. It detailed how the assembly had been secretly destroying human research stations in deep space. The attacks were blamed on pirates or accidents, but they were planned, organized, deliberate. The third file made Han's blood run cold. It was a proposal, written by something called the Inner Council. The proposal had a simple title, The Earth Problem, Final Solution. He read it twice to make sure he understood. The assembly was planning to sterilize Earth. They would use a biological weapon that only affected human DNA. Every man, woman, and child would become unable to have children. In 3 generations, humanity would be extinct. The reason given was galactic security. When was this written? Han asked. 2 months ago, Yuna said. It hasn't been approved yet, but it's being seriously considered. Han closed his eyes and took a deep breath. 30 years. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Assembly for 30 years. They had followed every rule, accepted every restriction, been patient and polite and humble, and this was their reward. Ambassador Inho stood in the Great Assembly Hall, surrounded by representatives from 847 different species. Some looked like plants, some looked like crystals, some looked like things from nightmares, but all of them were looking at him with the same expression, pity mixed with contempt. "Ambassador Inho," said the speaker, "a floating creature made of light and gas. We have reviewed your petition for equal representation for the 12th time, and," Inho asked, though he already knew the answer, "denied. Humanity is still too young, too violent, too unpredictable. Perhaps in another 100 years we will reconsider." Inho had expected this, but what came next was new. Furthermore, the speaker continued, "The Assembly has new requirements for humanity. You will surrender 3 of your colony worlds. The populations will be relocated. The worlds will be used for an Assembly construction project." "Which colonies?" Inho asked carefully. "New Sol, Bright Harbor, and Freedom's Rest. The worlds with the largest human populations outside Earth." "And if we refuse?" The speaker's light pulsed in what might have been amusement. "You will not refuse. The Assembly has also decided that humanity will provide workers for the Galactic Ring Project. 2 million humans, for a period of 20 years. That's slavery," Inho said flatly. "That's contribution to galactic society," the speaker corrected. "Consider it payment for the privilege of Assembly membership." Inho looked around the hall. Not one species objected. Not one voice spoke in humanity's defense. They had made their decision long ago. "I will relay your demands to Earth," Inho said. "They are not demands, Ambassador. They are requirements. You have 1 month to comply." Back on Han's ship, the crew gathered in the conference room. Inho had just returned from the assembly, his face dark with anger. He told them everything. The colonies, the forced labor, the casual arrogance of species who thought themselves superior. Then Han told them about the files Yuna had found, about the plan to end humanity forever. For a long moment, nobody spoke. "They're going to kill us," Tay said finally. "Not quickly, slowly. They'll take everything we have, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. Or they'll sterilize us and wait for us to die out," Yuna added. Why? Asked young officer Nari, who had joined the mission only 3 months before. Why do they hate us so much? They're afraid of us, Inho said. They call us Deathworlders. They know where we come from. What we survived to get here. Han nodded slowly. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. Only 3 other planets in the known galaxy had such a harsh rating. High gravity, violent weather, unstable geology, aggressive predators, deadly diseases. Earth had tried to kill humanity for 200,000 years, and humanity had won. Every other species in the assembly came from garden worlds. Gentle planets with light gravity and calm weather. They evolved in paradise. They had never faced real danger, never fought for survival. They looked at humans and saw something terrifying. A species that came from hell and learned to thrive there. So what do we do? Tay asked. Han walked to the communications console. He entered a long code that he had memorized years ago. A code that only 5 people in the entire human government knew. The screen flickered. Then a simple message appeared. Authorization required for protocol unshackled. Everyone in the room went very still. They all knew what that protocol was. It had been created 20 years ago in secret by people who understood that the galaxy might not be as friendly as it seemed. Captain? Inho said carefully. Are you sure? Han thought about the files. The plan to sterilize Earth. The contempt in the speaker's voice. The 847 species that watched humanity struggle and did nothing. He thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old. She wanted to be a pilot like her father. If the assembly had their way, she would be the last generation. His grandchildren would never exist. Han entered his authorization code. Then he typed a single message. Protocol unshackled is authorized. Execute immediately. He sent it somewhere on Earth in a bunker buried 3 miles beneath the surface. Alarms began to sound. Admiral Sora read the message on her screen. She had been waiting for this message for 15 years, hoping it would never come. Knowing that someday it would, she looked at her staff. Wake up every ship. Activate every weapon. Contact every cell. All of them, ma'am, asked her second in command. All of them, Sora confirmed. The game is over. It's time they learned what Deathworlders can really do. In space stations and asteroid bases across 50 solar systems, hidden doors began to open. Ships that officially didn't exist powered up their engines. Weapons that had been hidden for decades armed themselves. Humanity had been playing honest for 30 years, following the rules, pretending to be weak, accepting insults and restrictions. That era had just ended, and the galaxy was about to learn why you should never corner a predator from a death world. Admiral Sora stood in the command center, 3 miles beneath the mountains of what used to be called Korea. The room was massive, filled with hundreds of screens and thousands of people working at stations. This place didn't exist on any official map. Most of humanity didn't know it was here. Status report, she commanded. All Ghost Fleet units responding, ma'am, said Commander Doyun. 4,312 ships ready for deployment. Deathworld Arsenal is online, reported Dr. Mina from the Weapons Division. All systems armed and awaiting your orders. Sora allowed herself a small smile. 4,000 ships. The assembly thought humanity had maybe 300 vessels, all of them older designs with limited weapons. They had no idea. How long to reach assembly space? She asked. The first strike group can be there in 4 hours, Do-hyun replied. They're already in position, actually. We moved them there 3 weeks ago. Of course they did. Humanity had been preparing for this day since they first joined the assembly. Hope for peace but prepare for war, an old saying from Earth, one that had never let them down. Sir, called out Lieutenant Hana from communications. Captain Han is requesting permission to evacuate all human personnel from assembly stations. Granted, Sora said. Get our people out. Then we begin. Across the galaxy, human diplomats and workers suddenly got emergency messages. Drop everything. Get to the nearest human ship. Leave now. Don't ask questions. Ambassador Inho had already left the assembly station. His ship was moving toward Earth at maximum speed. Behind him, 50 other human ships did the same. The aliens didn't stop them. Why would they? Humans always followed the rules. On the assembly homeworld, Counselor Wu sat in his office packing his things slowly. An alien assistant, a being that looked like a walking tree, watched him with confusion. Counselor Wu, why are you leaving? The session isn't over for another month. Wu smiled at the assistant. He had worked with this being for 5 years. In that time, he had learned their language, their customs, their culture. He actually liked them. I'm going home, Wu said. I suggest you do the same. I don't understand. You will soon, Wu said. When you do, remember that I tried to warn you. Tell your government to stay neutral. Don't fight for the assembly. Don't fight against humanity. Just stay out of it. The assistant's leaves rustled with worry. Counselor, you're frightening me. Good, Wu said gently. Fear might save your life. He left the office and walked to the docking bay. His ship was waiting. As he boarded, he took one last look at the assembly building. Beautiful, ancient, built on lies and oppression. In a few hours, it wouldn't matter anymore. The first strike happened exactly 4 hours after Han sent his message. The assembly had a military station in the Ketar system, home to one of their largest fleets. 200 ships, including their newest dreadnoughts. The assembly admiral was a Velith, one of the crystalline beings that ran the inner council. His name was something humans couldn't pronounce. He sat in his command throne, reviewing reports about the human question. The inner council was meeting tomorrow to finalize the sterilization plan. His second officer suddenly made a sound of alarm. Sir, detecting unknown ships entering the system. How many? The admiral asked, not particularly concerned. Unknown ships were usually just traders who forgot to file flight plans. 12, sir. They're human vessels. 12 human ships. The admiral almost laughed. Activate weapons. We'll destroy them, and then file a complaint about their unauthorized entry. It will give the council more justification for the final solution. Sir, they're not retreating. They're attacking. The admiral looked at his screens. 12 small human ships were indeed moving toward his fleet. It was suicide, foolish, typical of the violent Deathworlders. All ships open fire. Let's end this quickly. The assembly fleet fired. Thousands of weapons lit up space. Energy beams, missiles, plasma cannons. Enough firepower to destroy a planet. The human ships dodged. All of them. They moved in patterns that seemed impossible. Turns that should have killed their crews from the force. Speeds that should have torn their ships apart. Then the human ships fired back. What happened next would be studied by military historians for 500 years. The assembly called it the Qatar Massacre. Humans called it the First Truth. The 12 human ships didn't use normal weapons. They fired projectiles made of ultra-dense metals from Earth's core. These projectiles moved at relativistic speeds, nearly the speed of light. When they hit assembly ships, they went straight through them. Through armor, through shields, through everything, one shot, one kill. In 3 minutes, 50 assembly ships were destroyed. In 4 minutes, 100. The assembly ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels were faster. They chased down every ship, boarded some, disabled others, destroyed the rest. When it was over, 200 assembly ships were gone. 12 human ships remained, barely damaged. Lieutenant Do-hyun commanded the lead ship. He sent a message back to Earth. First strike successful. No losses. Then he broadcast on all assembly frequencies. This is Lieutenant Do-hyun of the Human Defense Force. For 30 years, we played by your rules. We accepted your insults. We pretended to be weak. That ends today. Any assembly ship that attacks humans will be destroyed. Any assembly world that threatens Earth will be destroyed. We gave you peace. You chose extinction. The message reached assembly headquarters in minutes. Panic spread like fire. How is this possible? The speaker demanded. They're primitives. They have no weapons. But the reports kept coming. Human ships appeared in 50 different systems simultaneously. Not 300 ships, thousands of ships. Ships with technology decades beyond anything the assembly possessed. Admiral Sora watched the reports flow in. Every strike was successful. The assembly fleets were being destroyed faster than they could respond. Dr. Mina, she said, show them the Deathworld arsenal. Dr. Mina nodded. She had been waiting for this for 10 years. She activated a system that had been designed by Earth's best and most terrifying minds. The arsenal was a collection of weapons based on Earth's biology and physics. Humanity had studied every predator, every disease, every natural disaster on Earth. Then they had weaponized all of it. Viral weapons based on smallpox and plague, modified to affect alien biology. Kinetic weapons using Earth's dense metals. gravity weapons based on Earth's powerful tectonic forces, AI systems that thought like human generals, combining strategy and ruthlessness in ways no other species could imagine. Release Weapon Category 5, Sora ordered. Category 5 was nicknamed the Earthquake. It used gravitational distortions to create artificial tectonic activity. The first target was an assembly military base on a garden world. The weapon activated from orbit. Within seconds, the entire base collapsed into the ground. The base was destroyed. The planet itself was fine. Precision Assembly Command watched in horror as human weapons did things they thought impossible. But the worst part wasn't the weapons. It was the strategy. Counselor Wu, now safely on his way to Earth, sent a final broadcast to every species in the assembly. In it, he revealed who he really was. Commander Wu, Human Military Intelligence Infiltration Division. "I've been among you for 5 years," he said in the broadcast. "In that time, I learned everything about you. Your military codes, your trade routes, your secret bases, your hidden treaties, everything." He wasn't alone. Humanity had planted agents throughout the assembly for 20 years. Diplomats who were actually spies, engineers who were actually saboteurs, scientists who were actually intelligence officers. They had been mapping, learning, preparing. "You thought we were naive," Wu's message continued. "You thought we didn't understand politics or strategy. But we come from a world where everything tried to kill us. We learned to be paranoid. We learned to plan for the worst. We learned to never ever trust anyone." The assembly tried to mobilize their full military, 12,000 ships from 400 different species. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. Admiral Sora saw the fleet gathering on her screens. She turned to her command staff. "They still don't understand," she said quietly. "They think this is a normal war. They think numbers matter. Should we retreat?" asked a young officer nervously. Sora shook her head. "No. We're going to show them why Earth is called a death world. We're going to show them what it means to evolve in hell." She opened a channel to every human ship. "All vessels, this is Admiral Sora. The assembly has deployed their full fleet. They think they can intimidate us with numbers. They think we'll be afraid." She paused. "Did they forget what we are? We're the species that survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed half our population. We didn't just survive, we thrived. We conquered our own planet before we ever left it." She smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "So let's teach them what fear really means. Let's show them why you don't corner a predator. Attack formation Delta, no mercy. No prisoners. No retreat." Across human space, 4,000 ships moved into position, not to defend. To attack. The war wasn't over. It had barely begun, but the assembly was already losing and they didn't even know it yet. The assembly fleet moved through space like a massive storm. 12,000 ships from 400 species. They had never lost a war. They had never even come close to losing. For 6,000 years, the assembly had ruled the galaxy through sheer numbers and ancient technology. Commander J watched them approach on his screens. His ship was small compared to the assembly dreadnoughts. The enemy flagship alone was 50 times bigger than any human vessel. But size didn't matter. Not anymore. "All ships maintain formation," J commanded. "Remember your training. Remember what we practiced." His fleet had only 300 ships. 300 against 12,000. The math seemed impossible. But math didn't account for one thing. Humans were from Earth. The assembly fleet opened fire first. The void of space lit up with thousands of weapons. Energy beams that could melt planets, missiles that could crack moons. The barrage was so intense it created a wall of light. The human ships moved. They didn't retreat. They didn't scatter. They danced. Each ship moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually precisely calculated. They used gravitational fields to slingshot around each other. They used debris as cover. They moved in ways that would crush the bodies of any species that evolved in low gravity. Pilot Hana was in the thick of it. Her fighter was surrounded by 40 enemy ships. They fired at her from every direction. She smiled and pushed her engines to maximum. 12 Gs of force pressed her into her seat. Her vision blurred. Her bones felt like they might break. But she had trained for this since she was 16. Her body, shaped by Earth's heavy gravity, could take it. She spun her ship, dodged left, rolled right, dove down. The enemy shots missed her by meters, sometimes by centimeters. She fired back, her weapons finding their targets. One enemy ship exploded, then another. Then 5 more. "Hana, you've got 20 more on your tail," her wingman called. "Only 20?" she replied. "I'm disappointed." She led them into a debris field, weaving between chunks of destroyed ships. The enemy ships were bigger and slower. They couldn't follow her tight turns. 3 of them crashed into debris. 5 more crashed into each other, trying to follow her impossible maneuvers. Across the battlefield, the same story repeated. Human ships were smaller, faster, and piloted by beings who evolved to survive 12 times the gravity these aliens could handle. Every human pilot could perform maneuvers that would kill or knock unconscious any other species. But the space battle was only part of the war. Commander J had other plans. "Target the assembly command ship," he ordered. "Boarding teams, prepare." "Sir, that ship has 10,000 defenders," his second officer warned. "Good," J replied. "They'll need them." The human ships focused their fire on one target, the massive assembly flagship. Their weapons didn't destroy it. They disabled its shields and weapons, then they boarded it. 200 human soldiers in combat armor hit the flagship's hull. They cut through the armor like it was paper. Inside, the assembly crew waited to defend their ship. They had soldiers from 20 different warrior species, all of them trained, all of them experienced. None of them were ready for humans. The human soldiers moved through the ship like water flowing downhill, fast, unstoppable. The assembly soldiers were stronger in some cases. They had better weapons sometimes, but they didn't have Earth gravity training. They didn't have human endurance. They didn't have the mindset of a species that spent its entire evolution fighting for survival. One human soldier, a young woman named Ray, faced 5 Carthon warriors. The Carthons were famous across the galaxy. Each one was 9 feet tall with 4 arms and natural armor. They were considered the best fighters in the assembly. Ray was 5.5 feet tall and weighed 120 pounds. The Carthons charged. Ray waited. At the last second, she moved. Not away, toward them. She slid under the first one's attack, cut through its leg armor with her blade, and rolled past it. The second Carthon swung at her. She caught its arm, used its own momentum to throw it into the third Carthon. The fourth one actually managed to hit her, a blow that would have killed most species. Ray's armor absorbed most of it. The rest her Earth-built skeleton handled. She felt ribs crack but ignored the pain. Pain was just information. She struck back, her blade finding weak points the Carthons didn't even know they had. In 30 seconds, all 5 Carthons were down. Ray kept moving. Her ribs would heal. The mission wouldn't wait. The human soldiers reached the bridge in 18 minutes. The assembly admiral, the crystalline Velith who had been so confident, watched in shock as his doors were torn open. Captain Han stepped onto the bridge. He was the one who had authorized Protocol Unshackled. Now he was here to see it through. "Surrender your ship," Han said simply. The admiral made a sound like breaking glass. "You attack the assembly. You commit an act of war." "No," Han corrected. "You committed an act of war when you planned to sterilize my species. We're just responding. We are 847 species. You are one. You cannot win." Han smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Watch us," he turned to his soldiers. "Take the bridge. Broadcast our terms to all assembly ships." Within minutes, every ship in the assembly fleet received a message. It was from Admiral Sora, broadcast from Earth. "Attention all assembly forces. This is Admiral Sora of the Human Defense Command. You are fighting for a government that planned genocide. We have evidence of the assembly's crimes. We are broadcasting them now to all your homeworlds. Your families are watching. Your people are watching. Ask yourselves, do you really want to die for the Velith and their inner council?" Then humanity did something the assembly never expected. They released everything. Every secret file. Every hidden treaty. Every crime the inner council had committed for 3,000 years. The assembly wasn't just corrupt. It was built on corruption. The Velith had been suppressing technology from other species for millennia. They had been stealing resources. They had been quietly eliminating any species that got too advanced or too independent. They had destroyed 6 civilizations completely, erasing them from history. The proof was undeniable. Documents, videos, testimonies from the Velith's own records. On 847 worlds, people watched the broadcasts. They saw what their government had really been doing. They saw the contempt the Inner Council had for them. They saw the plans to manage populations and control development. Revolution started on the first world within an hour, then 10 more worlds, then 100. The assembly fleet began to fall apart. Ships started breaking formation. Some retreated. Some surrendered. Some actually turned their weapons on the Velith ships. All Velith vessels, Han broadcasted, surrender immediately. You will be given a fair trial. Your people will be given a choice about their future. But the Inner Council is over. Today, right now. Most Velith ships tried to run. Human ships chased them down and disabled them. A few Velith ships fought to the end. They were destroyed. But one Velith ship, the absolute largest, activated something humanity hadn't known about. A doomsday weapon. It started charging. If it fired, it would destroy everything in the system. Humans, assembly, everyone. They'd rather kill everyone than lose, Jay said in disbelief. Not everyone, Han replied. Just us. They know the explosion will destroy their fleet too, but they don't care. As long as humanity dies, and we can't let them fire that thing, so we won't, Han said. Get me a boarding shuttle. I'm going in. 10 minutes later, Han and 20 soldiers were inside the Velith Citadel ship. The Velith defenders fought hard, but they were scientists and politicians, not soldiers. They died quickly. Han reached the throne room where the Inner Council gathered. 5 Velith overlords, their crystalline bodies glowing with ancient power. They were the ones who had ruled the assembly for 3,000 years. The ones who had ordered countless crimes. The ones who planned to end humanity. You cannot stop the weapon, one overlord said. In 5 minutes it fires. You die, we die. But you die first, and that's enough. Han looked at them. These beings had caused so much suffering. So much death. Part of him wanted to let them fire. Let them prove to the galaxy what monsters they really were. But he was human. And humans had learned something important in their long, violent history. Revenge feels good, but justice is better. Yuna, he said into his comm. Can you stop the weapon? Already done, Captain, Yuna replied cheerfully. I hacked their system 3 minutes ago. The weapon is offline. The overlords made sounds of shock. Impossible, their systems were unhackable. They had been secured for millennia. You're not fighting primitives, Han told them. You're fighting the species that invented computers. That created AI, that built quantum systems. Your security is 3,000 years old. Our hackers are 20 years old and bored. He activated a broadcast that would reach every corner of the galaxy. Every world. Every species. He made sure the overlords could hear him. People of the galaxy, Han said. I'm standing in front of the Inner Council. The beings who have ruled you for 3,000 years. They tried to use a doomsday weapon. They would have killed millions of their own people just to destroy humanity. This is who they are. This is what they've always been. He looked at the overlords. You will stand trial. Every species you've wronged will have a voice. Every crime will be exposed. And then you will face justice. The war ended on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, humanity had a bigger problem than fighting. They had to figure out what came next. Admiral Sora stood in what used to be the Assembly's main hall. The building had survived the war intact. Humanity made sure of that. They didn't want to destroy the galaxy's infrastructure. They wanted to fix it. How many species have asked to join the new confederation? She asked. Commander Wu checked his tablet. 612 as of this morning. Another 100 are still deciding. The rest are staying neutral. And the Velith worlds? In chaos. Their people are fighting among themselves. Some want to rebuild. Some want revenge for what the Inner Council did. Some just want to be left alone. Sora nodded. She understood. When your entire government turns out to be built on lies, trust becomes impossible. It would take time for those worlds to heal. Maybe generations. The door opened. Ambassador Inho walked in, followed by a dozen representatives from different species. They all looked nervous, scared even. They didn't know what humanity would do now that they had power. Thank you for coming, Sora said, standing to greet them. Please sit, they sat. One of them, a being that looked like a walking flower, spoke carefully. Admiral Sora, we want to thank humanity for freeing us from the assembly. But we need to know what happens now. Will you rule us? No, Sora said immediately. We didn't fight a war against tyranny just to become tyrants ourselves. Then what do you want? We want a real democracy, a confederation where every species has equal representation. where decisions are made by voting, not by whoever is strongest. The flower being's petals trembled. That's what the assembly claimed to be. In the beginning. I know, Sora said. That's why we have rules. Written down, clear, with punishments if anyone breaks them, including us. She pulled up a document on the main screen. This is the Confederation Charter. We've been working on it for 20 years. It's based on what we learned from the Assembly's failures. The representatives read it carefully. The charter was long and detailed, but the core principles were simple. No slavery, no genocide, no suppression of technology, equal votes for all member species, and transparent government. Any species could leave the Confederation at any time. Any species could join as long as they followed the rules. What if someone breaks these rules? Another representative asked. This one looked like a cat crossed with a lizard. Then they face consequences, Sora replied. We'll have a justice system, courts, judges from multiple species. If a species commits genocide, the Confederation acts. If a species enslaves others, the Confederation acts. The rules apply to everyone, including humanity, especially humanity, Sora said. We know what power does. We've seen it on our own world. That's why we're building in checks and balances. No species should have absolute control, not even us. A bird-like representative raised a wing. But you have the strongest military. You could ignore any rule you wanted. We could, Sora agreed, but we won't. And if we ever try, we expect you to stop us. That's how democracy works. Everyone watches everyone else. The representatives looked at each other. This was new. The Assembly had never admitted it could be wrong. The Inner Council had never accepted limits on its power. But humanity was openly saying they needed to be controlled. We'll need proof, the flower being said. Words are easy. Actions are hard. Agreed, Sora said. Which is why humanity is already doing 3 things. First, we're sharing our technology. All of it, no secrets. Any Confederation member can have access to human science. The representatives gasped. Technology was power. No species shared technology freely. Second, we're reducing our military. We'll keep enough ships to defend against outside threats, but we're not keeping a galaxy-conquering fleet. We'll demobilize 3,000 ships over the next 5 years. And third? The cat lizard asked. Third, we're giving up our veto power. In the old Assembly, the Inner Council could veto anything. In the new Confederation, humanity gets 1 vote. Just like everyone else, the room went silent. The representative stared at Sora like she had just said something insane. You just won a war, the bird representative said slowly. You have the power to rule everything. And you're giving it up? Yes, Sora said. Because we learned something important on Earth. Power corrupts, always. The only way to prevent that is to limit power. Share it, make it temporary. Our leaders serve for a few years, then someone else takes over. Our military answers to civilian government. Our government answers to the people. The Assembly was strong for 3,000 years, the flower being pointed out. Your democracy will be weak. No, Sora corrected. The Assembly was brittle. It looked strong, but when we pushed, it shattered. Democracy is flexible. It bends, it adapts. That's real strength. While Sora worked on politics, Dr. Sung was traveling to alien worlds. His job was education. Humanity realized that the other species didn't really understand what Earth was like. They knew it was classified as a death world, but they didn't understand what that meant. Sung's first stop was Pelis, a garden world with .4 gravity and constant perfect weather. He gave a presentation to the local government. On the screen behind him, he showed images of Earth. This is a hurricane, he explained, showing a massive storm. Wind speeds of 200 miles per hour. Waves 50 feet high. It can destroy entire cities. The Pelis representatives looked confused. What's a hurricane? It's weather, Sung said. On Earth, weather can kill you. We have storms that can level buildings, tornadoes that can pick up cars and throw them, blizzards that can freeze you in minutes. Your weather attacks you? One representative asked in disbelief. Yes, Sung said. And that's just the weather. Let me show you. Earth's animals. He showed images of lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks, snakes, spiders. The representatives became more and more horrified. These creatures exist on your world? A representative whispered. They can kill you? Easily, Sung confirmed. A tiger can bite with 1,000 pounds of force. A crocodile can drag you underwater and drown you. A single spider bite can kill a human child. How do you survive? We learned to be smarter than them, faster, more dangerous. We became the apex predator. But it took us 200,000 years and billions of deaths. He showed more slides, diseases, earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages, asteroid impacts, every natural disaster that had ever hit Earth. This is smallpox, he said, showing microscopic images. It killed 300 million humans in the 20th century alone. This is the plague. It killed half of Europe. This is influenza. This is typhoid. This is cholera. The representatives looked sick. Their world had no predators, no deadly weather, no diseases. They couldn't imagine living with such threats. Now you understand, Sung said quietly. This is why humans seem scary to you. We evolved in a place that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to be paranoid, to plan ahead, to never give up, because on Earth, giving up means death. But you're safe now, one representative said. You have technology. You left your death world. Sung shook his head. We're never safe. That's what you don't understand. Earth taught us that safety is an illusion. Danger is always waiting. So we prepare, we plan. We keep weapons and food and medicine ready. Not because we're violent, because we're survivors. The presentation went viral. Within weeks, every species in the former assembly had seen it. They started to understand what Deathworlders really meant. They realized humanity wasn't cruel. They were just careful, prepared, shaped by a world that showed no mercy. Ambassador Ari gave speeches across the galaxy. Everywhere she went, she said the same thing. You evolved in paradise. We evolved in hell. You learned to be peaceful. We learned to survive. Neither is better or worse. They're just different. But now we need to learn from each other. Slowly, the galaxy started to change. Species that had been afraid of humans began to see them differently. Not as monsters. As teachers, humans knew about danger in a way no one else did. They could help prepare for threats. They could train security forces. They could design disaster plans. But some species refused to change. They tried to form anti-human alliances. They plotted revenge. They wanted the old assembly back. Humanity's intelligence network found them quickly. Commander Wu, who was now head of Confederation intelligence, personally visited each plotting species. He didn't threaten them. He simply showed them what he knew. We've been monitoring you for 3 weeks, he would say. We know about your secret meetings, your weapons shipments, your plans, but we're not going to attack you. Then why are you here? They would ask. To give you a choice. You can keep plotting against us, keep wasting resources on a war you can't win, or you can join the Confederation and help build something better. Your choice. Most chose to join. A few tried to fight. Those conflicts were over quickly. Humanity didn't want to fight anymore, but they would if they had to. And they were very, very good at it. The inner council members went on trial. It took 3 years. Representatives from 500 species testified. Evidence filled entire data centers. The trials were broadcast live across the galaxy. Everyone watched. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty of genocide. Guilty of corruption. Guilty of tyranny. The Velith overlords were sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote world with no technology. 500 years had passed since the war. The galaxy looked very different now. Professor Minho stood at the front of a lecture hall in the Galactic Academy. He was old now, 130 years old thanks to human medicine. His students were young, a mix of 50 different species, all eager to learn history. Today, Minho said, we discuss the most important event in modern galactic history. The day humans stopped pretending to be weak. Some call it the unshackling. Some call it the liberation. But most species call it simply the day Deathworlders ceased playing honest. A student raised a tentacle. This one was from Pelos, a water world. Professor, did humans really have 4,000 ships hidden in space? They did, Minho confirmed. For 20 years, they built ships in secret. They prepared for war while pretending to be peaceful. Wasn't that dishonest? Another student asked. She was from Kelos, a crystal world. Minho smiled. That's a good question. Let's think about it. The assembly demanded humans stay weak. They suppressed human technology. They planned genocide. Should humans have trusted them? The students went quiet, thinking. Humans learned something on their death world, Minho continued. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. They wanted peace, but they weren't stupid enough to be helpless. Is that dishonest? Or is it wise? It's wise, said a human student in the back. My grandfather always said locks keep honest people honest. Weapons keep powerful people careful. Exactly, Minho said. Humans didn't start the conflict. They ended it. They could have been more honest, yes. But would honesty have saved them? Or would it have gotten them killed? He pulled up a map of the galaxy on the screen. Here's what makes this story interesting. Humans won the war in 89 days. They had the power to rule everything. And then they gave that power away. Why? Several students asked at once. Because they understood something the assembly never did. Power corrupts. Always. Eventually. The only way to prevent it is to not have power in the first place. He showed images from the Confederation's founding. Humans reduced their military, shared their technology, gave up their veto power. They made themselves just another species in the Confederation, equal to everyone else. That seems stupid, the Kalos student said. They worked so hard to win. Why give it up? Because winning wasn't the goal, Minho explained. Freedom was the goal. Justice was the goal. And you can't have real freedom or justice when one group has all the power. Humans knew that from their own history. He showed images from Earth's past. Wars, dictators, empires. Humans tried empire on their own world. Many times. It always failed, always ended in suffering, so they learned. They built democracies, governments where power was shared and limited. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than the alternative. A Palas student raised a wing. Professor, is it true that humans still have their weapons? Hidden somewhere? Minho nodded slowly. Yes, that's actually an interesting part of the story. Humans demobilized most of their fleet, but not all of it. They kept maybe 400 ships hidden away, just in case. Just in case of what? Just in case someone needed to be reminded, Minho said. You see, humans don't want to rule, but they also won't allow tyranny to return. If some species tried to rebuild the assembly, tried to enslave others again, humanity would stop them. That's their role now, the guardians who don't want to guard but will if they have to. The lecture continued for another hour. Minho showed videos from the war, testimonies from survivors, documents from the trials. By the end, every student understood what had happened, and why it mattered. After class, a young alien approached Minho. She was from Tellus, a moon colony. Professor, my grandmother knew Admiral Sora before she died. Is it true she regretted the war? I met Sora once, Minho said quietly. She told me she regretted every death, every ship destroyed, every life lost. But she didn't regret fighting. She said, sometimes you have to break things to fix them. The assembly was broken, so they broke it. And now we have the Confederation instead. Now we have a chance, Minho corrected. The Confederation isn't perfect. It makes mistakes. But it's better than what came before. And it can improve. That's what matters. Not being perfect, being willing to change. Across campus, another lecture was happening. This one was about Earth itself. The teacher was Dr. Kira, a xenobiologist. She showed her students images of Earth's most dangerous creatures. This is a polar bear, she said. It weighs 1,500 pounds. It can run 30 miles per hour. It can smell prey from 20 miles away. And it lives in one of the coldest environments on Earth. Did humans hunt these? A student asked. Yes, Kira said, with primitive weapons. Spears made of stone and wood. And they won. She showed more creatures, wolves, crocodiles, cobras. Humans were not the strongest species on their planet. They were not the fastest, not the biggest, but they were the smartest. And the most stubborn. They refused to give up even when everything tried to kill them. That explains why they're so paranoid, a student joked. It's not paranoia when the danger is real, Kira corrected. On Earth, danger was always real, always present. So humans learned to prepare, to plan, to never be caught off guard. That mindset saved them during the war. But now they're safe, another student said. They don't need to be so careful anymore. Kira shook her head. Humans will never feel safe. It's in their biology now. Millions of years of evolution taught them that safety is temporary, danger is eternal. So they prepare always. She pulled up a quote on the screen. It was from Admiral Sora, given in an interview just before she died at age 150. A student asked me once, when will humans finally relax? When will you stop preparing for the worst? I told her never. Earth taught us that the universe is hostile. That survival requires constant vigilance. We're not preparing for war. We're preparing for reality. And reality is that bad things happen to those who aren't ready. The students read the quote in silence. Is that sad? One student asked. To never feel safe? Maybe, Kira said. But it's also why humans are still here. Every other Deathworld species died out. They couldn't adapt. Couldn't survive. Couldn't handle the pressure. But humans did. They thrived. And now they're teaching the rest of us how to survive too. In the capital of the Confederation, now located on a neutral world called Unity Station, the council was in session. Representatives from 1,000 species sat in the Great Hall. Humans had 3 representatives just like everyone else. The current human representative was Ambassador Day. He was young, only 50 years old. He stood to address the council. We've received reports of a new threat, Day said. Beyond our galaxy. Something is destroying civilizations. We don't know what it is yet. But we need to prepare. How do you know about this threat? A representative from Palos asked. Human long-range sensors picked it up, Day explained. We've been monitoring deep space for decades. It's what we do. Of course you have, the representative muttered, but there was no anger in the words. Just acceptance. Everyone knew humans were paranoid, and everyone was grateful for it now. What do you suggest? The council speaker asked. We build a defense fleet, Day said. All species contribute. We share technology. We train together, and if this threat comes to our galaxy, we'll be ready. The vote was unanimous. The galaxy would prepare. Together. After the session, the speaker approached Day. The speaker was from Velos, the same species as the old overlords. But this Velos was different, younger, raised in the new Confederation. Ambassador Day, the speaker said, Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do humans ever regret what happened? The war? The violence? Day thought for a moment. Every human regrets the violence. We wish it hadn't been necessary. But we don't regret fighting for freedom. For justice. If we had to do it again, we would. That's just who we are. Even knowing thousands died, especially knowing that, Day said quietly. Because if we hadn't fought, billions would have died. The assembly would have sterilized Earth, would have enslaved more species, would have continued being tyrants. Sometimes violence is necessary to stop greater violence. We hate that truth. But we accept it. The speaker nodded slowly. I'm glad humans won. I shouldn't say that. My own species started this war. But I'm glad you won. The galaxy is better now. It's not perfect, Day reminded them. No, the speaker agreed. But it's better. And it can become more better. That's enough. On Earth, in a small town in what used to be called Korea, an old woman sat with her great-grandchildren. She was 140 years old. Her name was Hana. Once she had been a pilot. During the war, she had fought 40 enemy ships alone and survived. Grandmother, one child asked. Tell us about the war, Hana smiled. Again? I've told you this story 100 times. But we like it, the children said. So Hana told them. About the assembly. About the hiding and preparing. About the day Captain Han sent the message that changed everything. About the battles and the victories. About how humanity won. And then what? The youngest child asked. And then we gave it all away, Hana said. The power. The control. We could have ruled the galaxy. But we didn't want to rule. We wanted everyone to be free. Why? Because that's what humans do, Hana said. We fight for freedom. Not just our freedom. Everyone's freedom. That's what makes us special. Not our weapons or our ships.